I don't wanna feel the place, 'cause it feels things way too hard. Got me on the ceiling, but the feels ain't worth the fall. Ooh, la la, it's better when I'm numb. I don't wanna feel this, 'cause it feels things way too hard. Run your fingers through my hair, no I get a little scared, 'cause you know
Here and welcome to the 10th edition of the Acme Arts and Book Festival.
And creation, tell us of breath, the first soul. Tell us of words like constellations mapping our contributions to humanity. Tell us of infinity, how the universe lives in us. Tell us which stars bear our name.
I used to play it kinda cool, now I don't know what to do when you with the other guys. Ooh, it's only a matter of time. Ooh, before you and me.
Over, say themselves, say life. All right, so, and it's my twin who's coming over there. Many people keep saying, why do you people call yourself twins? It's because if you go into the media, especially in the West, they will write Lola Shone, they put his picture. Sometimes they write to this one, they put my picture. Even in South Africa, so we had an agreement that we are just going to be each other. Yes. It doesn't matter. You call me Susie, I'll answer you, right? But I go and see Lola. Please join me in giving to Israel an Acme Festival. Welcome. Thank you so much. Over to you.
I couldn't fall asleep again. Been overthinking all the little things I've said. I'm sleep deprived almost every night, and I wish that I wouldn't think instead. I know the sun is up and I got things to do, but I don't think I've got the energy to move. And I go back to my dreams again, but I shouldn't be sleeping when it's daylight now and I'm stuck in my bed. Daylight now and I'm stuck in my head, 'cause I've been stressing out all on my own when I should make my way out of my home. It's daylight now, gotta open my eyes. Daylight now, can't be.
You do, and I really appreciate it. Please welcome Ami. If she writes your book, you are blown. And it's because of her, she's the one who introduced me to the first author that I'm going to invite. Award-winning author, based in Canada, but is joining us here today, Francesca OrhueEghosasere. With such a funky cover. People keep texting me and saying, "Mary, we love that cover." Every time they say it, I say, "Oh, me too." Taiwan myself, because we knew it was going to be a hit. Author of Tomorrow I Become a Woman. Incredible book. They can't stop talking about it. Join me in welcoming Taiwan myself.
Curious, at what point did the title reveal itself to you, and was this your original title from the beginning?
I'm such an honest leader, especially for me, so thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me, Lola, and thank you everyone for being here. And others in the audience, and thank you very much. Yes, so the title of the book came after I finished the first draft. It was a different title. What was it? It had two different titles. Initially, it was If You're the One Who Stays the Longest. And then it was A Tender and Kindness, which was just You're what?
I read the first 10 chapters, I sent it to a friend, and she was like, it's not there yet. But then I was like, okay, I just felt like I needed to have a very strong thing in mind that would also help my writing, went back to start over writing. And I was like, wait, this actually makes so much sense. Tomorrow I become a woman. I just lifted it, book things entirely actually. But that first sentence was like, yes, this is that first, and one thing that inspired the title was, I don't know how many many people here have read and many people haven't read it, but one question that was throughout the book, common thread throughout the book, of when you like becoming a woman, so because that's something, womanhood is something that is done with in front of women, the girls growing up, it's like when this happens you become a woman, but then when it's like your menses come, you're a woman, when you get married, you're a woman, when you have children, you're a woman. And then you get there's always a shifting goalpost, and and then some people say, oh, when you have a first son, you're a woman. When you have one, just keep moving. And it's like, oh, when do I actually, get this thing, And so that's why tomorrow, it's always tomorrow. About flying articles of the business exploits of Chigozie Azuki, a respected member of the community and his dutiful wife, one Obianudu Azuki Oweke, who stood by him through the toughest of times. Mama would buy dozens of copies and distribute them to all her friends and members of the Women's Society of Lagos, and show every visitor that crossed the threshold of her household, of her and Papa's household, her daughter, her Uju, was now a
This is how you make monster with your sister on the day she returns home. You are happy to occupy yourself with this task, as it keeps you from asking if she read the letters you wrote over the years but never intended to send. You'll need the following ingredients: several overripe plantains, 6 heaping tablespoons of flour, 4 teaspoons of fast-acting yeast, a quarter cup of warm water, Italian peppers to increase preference, a tablespoon of salt, and vegetable oil for frying. First things first, you'll have to activate the yeast. You can do this while failing to share with your sister the fact that Baghead took upon herself, without your consent or any sense of boundaries whatsoever, to pick up a shoebox full of letters and you had poured yourself into with no...
You need this book in your life. I'm not even playing. Buy the book downstairs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lola. Thank you. Why don't we get right into it? And as a Nigerian who's also dual German, I'm going to be relying on my German link to actually make sure we're on track. So we'll keep to time, German time. Don't blame me, my citizenship is sexually transmitted. Sorry, maritime. So let's begin. Now you have a taste of what we're in for. In May, a book called Sorosuke, The Young Disruptors of an African Megacity was published by Trish Lawrence, who, as you can guess from the name, a non-Nigerian researcher. So the outrage was that Lawrence had been quoted as saying she coined the Yoruba term Sorosuke for speak up. Now that anger bubbled into something else online and offline. The outrage was that the story of a generation was being told by a foreigner, an outsider. It wasn't just online with 7,500 signatures petitioning for cancellation of the book. It actually resulted in the real-time cancellation of Lawrence's book launch. And so we had Twitter spaces and general discussions. Who is supposed to tell this kind of story? Now bear in mind, we're asking the panelists here different versions of this question, but we'd also like to hear from everyone. Who's an outsider, who's an insider, are they allowed to tell the story?
And so for me, I think the main reaction that has brought us here was the reaction to Lawrence's book. And it was that anyone based outside of Africa, physically, or in racial terms, in Lawrence's case, should not be telling the African story. So we're going to go straight into it. Dear panel, starting with Delma. What is your reaction to this reaction that Africans, only Africans physically based in Africa should tell the story?
So quite frankly, I believe that storytelling is a universal gift that we all have, and that we should be able to tell stories regardless of where we are from or what the color of our skin is. However, I understand the anger that led to this. However, how do we do this in a way that takes into account the authenticity of our version of the story? And so the anger is very much understood. However, if I'm being totally honest, I believe that stories should be told by everyone. However, the authenticity of the source and giving the credit. For example, she's saying she coined Sorosoke, that's bewildering. Sorosoke is, that's a cardinal sin, you can't do that. So, yes, let's all tell stories, but know what is the authentic source and how do we make sure that the source of these stories are given due credit to.
I remember
as a BBC. If you go through pretty much anywhere in this world right now and not to learn anything that is deemed to be quality information or quality stories about Africa, it is persistently told through a European prison, which is often told to benefit that prison itself too. I agree with my sister that on a normal basis, anybody should get to tell any story.
I sense the vote.
However, there's a reason why I'm not invited to speak about Brexit, or I'm not invited to speak about the rise of Donald Trump, or I'm not invited to speak about the direction of interest rates in the United Kingdom, or I'm not invited to speak about the makeup of the Fed, or anything else. There's many different, so I'm something I hear a lot on Western TV, on British TV, but there's a set of subjects they're comfortable with me speaking on, and a set of subjects they're not comfortable with me speaking on, meaning that there is indeed a protection of who gets to tell what stories when it comes to European stories. When it comes to African stories also, there is no protection of them. In fact, there is a protection, but it's the same protection on the other stories. So that's what it is.
I think for me, a lot of the stories that I have experienced where the individual comes into themselves, the individual is always against the community, or is rejected by the community, or there needs to be a separation between, or the individual and the community themselves are kind of in conflict, that there's no space where, or my experience of that in terms of story, that there are very rarely spaces where community can serve the individual, and the individual can serve the community without losing that individuality. So it's important for me that Aisha goes through this change, but that she comes back and she works that change out with her community, and that she's not rejected and she does not reject the community. Throughout this journey, she's finally able to learn how to accept the love the community gives her. And the community also learns to accept who she is as a person. So
So that was, I didn't write a story to empower people. I find that feeling empowering, to be able to go out. I live Kenya, I live wherever I come from, and I still belong to my people. It doesn't mean I belong any less to myself.
Yes, so on writing, I also go to a journey. There's a normal IT there in Lagos until Brother Moses, this man with a funky afro, comes into his life. First by forward, by sending him a letter and inviting him.
Yeah, I'm reading it. It's very exciting.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll tell my dealer. So what inspired the story? I think it has a lot to do with the flavors of incense I surrounded myself with when I was writing it, the chemicals that got into my body while I was writing it.
Chemicals.
Oh yeah, well, for example, I decided to be very clean when I wrote it, so I decided to only have fruits, fermented grapes to be precise. And I also learned that evil spirits do not like smoke. So I decided that I'm not just going to fumigate around to get evil spirits away so I can tell the story truthfully. I decided that I also needed to cleanse my inside. Tobacco is not good for you. Please don't smoke cigarettes, or give you cancer. But I found alternatives to tobacco that you can take. And my essential worker during the lockdown, I do a job, I call him my dealer. I told him what I was trying to achieve, and he told me the particular strains of the herbs that I needed to consume, and that really shows me good.
I love you, Sophia, Zuberi said, speaking from a badly buried face. I've loved you since you were 10, bossing around the young ones and catching beetles. I loved you when you loved your husband, in Old Town, in Kibogoni, on land, in the sea. I loved you with your long hair, and then with your short hair. I loved you when you covered it. I loved you, strong even before you had to grow up. I loved you, cussing out the children and turning sunflower seeds over. I loved you when you were within my sight, and I loved you when you left it. I loved you in the war, when everything was on fire, when everyone was dying. I loved you after you refused to have me. I loved you when your words put strength in me. I loved you when you weakened me. I loved you with your belly swollen with the son you loved. I loved you when you lied to me. I loved you when I ran from you. And I love you now, too. He spoke to the earth now. Sophia, his voice strained with a true and long carried pain and tender sweetness. You are my entire heart.
Jennifer's a bit of a, she's really, I just describe her as my queen, you know? In such a short period of time, she has given us these incredible works that have done so well. In Nigeria, we love Jennifer Makumbi. I think festival will not be complete without Jennifer. Some people will come and they will come after me if I don't invite Jennifer, and I know already. But also, you're ever so generous. You know, every time I invite you, it's just no question you're here, and I love you for that, Jennifer. And I want you to join me in giving Jennifer a big
your attention.
So Stand Humanity is, I should say, it is, well, if you all know what a rap battle is in the US, Stand Humanity is kind of like a calypso battle, where one person will say something, he will sing a chorus, and it has a set melody. So he sings his verse, and then he will always end the verse in a way to poke fun at his opponent. And the crowd will respond by saying, Santi Maniti, that's what they say, right? That's the chorus. And then the other person will sing his verse, poking back on at the first person. And then it's always, the chorus is always Santi Maniti, like that. So, at this week, this is a week for somebody who has died. And there's this calypsonian here named Winston. And I've only ever done this once before, but because you all have been so nice to me here, I'm going to do it today. Winston sat on a chair, facing the crowd, his back to the all fours tables. He removed his fedora and rested it on the chair next to him. Under the street lamp, his bald head shone like a dog's balls in moonlight. Beside the guest, that's what he wanted, to be seen, not in shadow, as he delivered the song he'd been practicing in the toilet. She was surprised when, instead of Sinatra, Winston began strumming the familiar local chords of an extempo. Help me, he encouraged the crowd, and they joined in, clapping and singing. Is a red shame and a tragedy? What happened in a small community? Start to see a big businessman get tied up with that tricky young woman. Although she knew the man was married, she pushed up to make a baby great. When she couldn't get the money as planned, she abhorred the sheepy innocent man.
Every time I see it, I just say Iswis in my mind. I just say Iswis. And I'm so used to it now. I said what I said. One of the biggest troublemakers on social media jobs. Let me see your hand. Jobs full of plenty problems. Temple shaking all the time. But an incredibly loving and sweet woman. And I love this girl. Please join me in welcoming Jola Ayele.
There are bound to be divisions, there are bound to be disagreements. I think it's normal, right? And I think we see a lot of tensions between especially younger feminists and older feminists. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, Julia, I'm taking as a representative of the younger feminists, even though I don't know how old you are. What do you feel you want older feminists to be more aware of or to pay more attention to?
So I'm 30, so I don't know if that's young. Because when
You're probably the youngest in this panel.
yeah, when my cousin saw, she was like, oh, so you're the young one. I thought you were pissed off, but yes. I think there is an issue on both sides of humility. So in my generation, there is a difficulty in being humble to learn and to listen. We get very agitated because we feel like we have things to say and we just don't understand. And there is social media and access and just the vast opportunities there are to speak makes it very difficult to be humble enough to listen and to learn. And there is the dogma of language as well, which means that if the older woman you are supposed to be learning from doesn't say things in the way you want her to say it exactly, if you don't get very particular buzzwords, you get very agitated very quickly. She's not on side, she's not on code, what does she know? But from the older generation, it often feels like there is a feeling that we are competing as opposed to continuing where you stopped or taking on a burden that is now heavy just because of time, you know. And so that contention means that we are not listening to each other enough and we're not able to share. But I think one thing that my generation is very passionate about is we now see very clearly that to dismantle patriarchy, we cannot rely on the benevolence of the upholders of patriarchy. So there is no way to be a good kind of feminism that means the people who benefit from patriarchy be like, you know what, they are just so nice, so polite, and so kind. I just like the way they do their things. So we are going to give up these benefits. It's not going to African behind. It's not going to happen. And so there is now an understanding that there's a lot of talking and trying, but we understand that where the power lies in what you said, norms and tradition, but also the law. There is very little that you can do if you feel like being a good person if the law requires you to be a good person. How you feel is now no longer relevant. So discussions that were being had 20, 30 years ago about whether or not it makes sense to educate a woman, it is irrelevant of whether you feel it is important or not. It is the law. You will send her to school or you will go to jail. And we are now trying to figure out, I think our generation is trying to figure out how to push other things that are really important to no longer rely on the benevolence of those around you, men around you, to think that certain things are important, not just education. Because not every woman is as interested in being part of a domestic unit anymore. And you cannot be punished societally for those things. So how do we move to enshrine and protect the rights of women, very specifically into law?
You know, and this is the path that we walk and that we are trying to find. So as much as my grandmother's generation, their contributions, they actively tried to erase them, they will do the same to my mother, they will do the same to me, they will do the same to the generation that comes after as well, you know, until we make an active effort to find empathy for each other and to acknowledge this lineage, to acknowledge this contribution, to name it. I found that it's so easy to be isolated and to be destroyed when you are singled out and kind of put on a pedestal and treated like you hatched out of an egg by yourself, right? You know, you're on this pedestal. That pedestal can easily be knocked down. But when you name your lineages, when you say, I come from somewhere, I am a product of this journey and these people, nobody can take that away from you. So that's my wish, is that we do more deliberate and intentional work of naming the women who have made it possible for us to be who we are, and having empathy for the fact that the context in which those women found themselves feministing is very different to the context in which we are feministing now. And that defines everything. That defines those contexts define the choices that those women made. So right now I sit and I'm a single mother and I don't have to get married. I can raise my kids on my own. My children are with my mother and my sisters right now, and I'm raising my kids in a matriarchal ecosystem. That wasn't possible for the generations that came before me. So I cannot now begrudge my mother for getting married or begrudge my grandmother for choosing to stay married, because their contexts were completely different. To each other, like here, you know, we've closed the room and said we are talking to each other as Africans, as Pan-Africans, as black people, all from all over the world. Here, what do we need to talk about when no one else is looking? I mean, with the exception of the people who have also been invited into the space. Welcome, white people, we are not erasing you, but you are also fully aware that you are in a black space, right? So there's nothing wrong with women creating our own spaces to talk about our own stuff and to conscientize each other around the issues that affect us. Those premarital counseling rituals could become highly radical spaces. Imagine if women were counseled and told that you have the right to demand sexual pleasure in your marriage. Imagine if women were told that you have the right to person abuses you. Imagine if women were told how from sexually transmitted diseases or told that there would be consequences if they were violated in any way in their marriages. So I think there's an opportunity for us to reimagine the spaces that already exist and subvert them, and also to create new spaces, or perhaps to even revive old ones. I'm thinking specifically around, something like menstruation, right? There's so many women, who are struggling with, and I mean, this is one of the beautiful things about existing in an era where there's so much access to information, right? Things like PCOS, fibromyalgia, I didn't know about these things, we grow up and you experience so much suffering because of your body and the way that women's health and medicine has been marginalized, like historically, Now we have all this access to information. What if we reimagined menstrual rituals? What if we created celebrations for girls and boys who also happen to have uteruses, because we are living in a world where we must acknowledge and celebrate and create safe spaces for trans people and trans women and trans girls, right? So what if we celebrated the onset of menstruation, right? And created spaces where we could talk to people with uteruses about what is happening to your body and make it beautiful. It took me so many years to fall in love with my period, it took me maybe 20, 25 years to really, really fall in love with my menstrual cycle and what it teaches me about my body. Men, you'll suffer through whatever it is that we are saying. I don't even become uncomfortable when we talk about periods, it's fine. With people who have vaginas, you love vaginas, in other contexts you will learn about vaginas. And even if we cannot do this in our real lives, as writers, as creatives, as people who exist in the realm of words and art, we can imagine this in our work. We can create the templates for this in our writing. I think the other side of what you were saying, in terms of what happens in families when we start to confront patriarchy. Make no mistake, patriarchy and misogyny are very violent. This is very violent business that we are talking about. And when you start to confront it, it's like lifting the lid off of a pressure cooker, you start to confront the structural violence of misogyny in a family, and you are confronting layers, and oh my God, time, okay. The girls who are going to wake up and call their fathers and their uncles bastards, more power to you. More power to you. And I wish you support systems in doing so. And I wish you the freedom to create the communities that you want to create. Family is not just about blood. Blood is important. It's absolutely important. Our ancestors are important. But it's also equally important to find communities of support for yourself. And if you cannot find that with the men who you are related to, go and find other people of whatever gender to do that. If it means that you have to call your father a bastard to find a mental liberation to be able to do that, you're also weird. So weird.
Always had feminists in Africa. We've always had feminists in African antiquity. They were called something else. That woman who refused to allow her daughter to be married before the age of 14 or 15 was called a witch. That woman who refused to be inherited by her husband's brother was a witch. That woman who was richer than every other man in the community because she was engaged in long-distance trade from Lagos way up to present-day Côte d'Ivoire was a witch or harlot. We've always had resistance to patriarchy, and so as African women, whatever age we are, we need to celebrate that resistance to patriarchy, whether we are 10, 30, 50, or 90. And my last point is, this is a good festival. Let us try and tell more stories. A lot of African women in particular will not tell their stories because they are too shy, they are afraid, or simply no one has asked them. So let us try and tell stories. If you know of the story of a wonderful woman who has done amazing things, even if she's not willing to tell her story herself, you can convert that story into fiction and write the story. Then we need to know these narratives, because when they don't tell the narratives, it's very easy for them to construct on our behalf.